Yavapai Broadcasting and the City of Cottonwood proudly present Inside Cottonwood, an inside look at the decisions and issues of the City of Cottonwood. Brought to you by Arizona Smile Designers. Here's Cottonwood City Manager Doug Bartosh.
Good morning and welcome to Inside Cottonwood. I'm your host, Doug Bartosh, also your city manager. And I'm here today with a couple of our, former Airport Commission chairman and our current Airport Commission chairman. And I thought it would be a great opportunity to get caught up on what's happening at our airport and see what we've got for plans into the future. And maybe it'd be best to start with you, Al, because you were the commissioner for, since the inception of the Airport Commission, probably, 5-6 years ago. Mm-hmm. And if you could, and Al's got a tremendous background in aviation and always appreciated his vision for our airport, but talk a little bit about kind of the transition during your chairmanship at the airport. What happened up there during that period of time?
Well, first of all, thank you for the compliment. When the Airport Commission was formed, there really was no involvement by people from the aviation community, and that was one of the things that we pointed out to the city and the city council. And initially, the things that we tried to do is identify the direction we wanted the airport to go in and also assess what the airport is. An airport in a community the size of Cottonwood is multifaceted. First of all, it is no different than a baseball diamond or the rec center for that matter. It's the responsibility of government to not make a profit like private industry, but provide for the welfare of the citizen base. And there were a lot of folks that actually moved to Cottonwood when the Cottonwood Ranch was formed because they were recreational pilots. So that was one area that it had to serve. But from another aspect, I think all of us are looking down the road of how can we build our community from a business base. And the big trick word today is jobs. And we also wanted to focus on trying to make the airport more attractive for the business community in the future. And we started to identify areas that we could do that and basically point the gun in that direction. Right now, what's happening in the aviation community at large is because the majority base of pilots, unfortunately, are like I am, and we're just getting old, and they're starting to drop away. And I think you're going to see that at the Cottonwood Airport. I think several of the guys that are still operating airplanes are in their 70s and 80s. Well, they're not going to be around and flying airplanes much longer. And the aviation community in general is taking that direction. The days of going to an airport and seeing rows of Piper Cubs and little Cessnas, that's going to start changing. The market growth is in the corporate airplanes. And we tried to focus in both areas as a commission when we looked at it. And I think we've done some real good things in the future, for the future, that are going to bring that transition about.
And what is the reason for that, Al? Is it the younger generation isn't interested in flying, or is it just gotten to be too expensive to?
Well, it's twofold. Is it expensive? It always has been expensive, but I don't think we've ever seen the differential in fuels like we're seeing now. I can remember when I started flying, it was 25 cents a gallon for fuel. Well, now the average price of avgas is $6, $7, $8 a gallon. That's prohibited in itself. But there was a generation when, and I'm going back into the 30s and in the 40s and the 50s, when aviation really was the magic thing for young people.
Right.
Well, today it's video games. And you just don't see that many folks getting into it, so it's twofold.
Yeah.
And like I say, it's going more towards the business community than it is for recreational flying.
You know, Jim, I think you've been on since the start of the commission too. And so we really have had tremendous experience. And Jim's a pilot as well. And what are the things you guys are working on right now?
Right now?
At the airport.
Project we have on the board right now would be an AWOS system. This is an automated weather observation system for the airport. And hopefully we'll have this up and operational within, I'm hoping within this year. This would help us in a lot of ways, make the airport much safer. We would also have a higher profile with corporate pilots. And as the airport is utilized more for emergency services, it would be beneficial also for them.
Now, and I know like the precursor to the AWOS was an instrument approach.
Yes.
Which I think we now have, and now I think it's just got to be published. I don't know if it's been published yet. That certainly helps us. And then this AWOS system is the next piece. And I think a lot of people, I think the challenge with the airport is we really don't have a lot of money to put into it other than what we gain from gas revenues and the federal government. And
federal and state grants,
right,
yes.
is essentially it. And anytime you're dealing with the federal government, it takes a while to get these things done.
And frustratingly.
You know, and it seems like our airport is right at the edge of being really usable and versus just a small kind of hobby airport almost. I mean, that's kind of, I'm not a pilot, but that's the impression I get over the years. And
well, the thing that's good, it was one of the things that I beat the drum hardest on when I was on the commission, because it was the aspect of aviation that I spent my life in, and that was this instrument approach. The effect of an instrument approach on most of the guys that are at the airport, with the exception of 2 or 3 who operate corporate airplanes, it doesn't make any difference. A major effect on how this airport's going to be perceived by business aircraft operators that may have a need to come into the Verde Valley. There's another big advantage of our airport from a standpoint of safety. I operate a jet out of Sedona. Sedona is probably one of the worst airports in the world to fly a jet out of, because it's basically built on a plateau in a blind canyon. And the weather's always, when there is weather, it's a lot worse there than it is here. Mm-hmm. The winds are terrible. And my operating procedure is, if we lose an engine on takeoff coming out of Sedona, we're going straight to Cottonwood. And it's a lower elevation, it's easy to get to, so it's a safety airport from that standpoint. It's a safety airport as far as weather goes. And I think once the instrument approach is in place, a lot of people are going to start perceiving us that way. Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think the other thing is, and I know you and I have had conversations about this, Al, and I know Jim is aware of this too, is, you know, I came out of the Scottsdale community, and I mean, talk about an economic engine. That airport down there that, you know, was relatively small when I got there in you know, in the 80s and 90s. I mean, now is just, I think it's one of the busiest single runway airports in the nation.
The busiest.
And you look at the air park, the economic development that has occurred around that airport. It's one of the largest employment centers in the state, if not the largest employer center in the state. And so, I mean, again, while I'm not a pilot, I've certainly seen where I think our airport has great potential to add to our economy. And I'm sure you guys have seen that too.
Yeah, I don't think that we've even begun to see the growth potential for the Verde Valley and Cottonwood that is going to happen in the future. Dan Brown just recently published a book. It's on all the newsstands, and I was in London. It's all over the place. And I read an interview that he had, and he made a statement that shocked me. I have been preaching for years that the single most threatening thing to face human beings on this planet is population. And his statement was, if you are 85 years old, the day you were born, the world population was 1/3 of what it is today. Where are all these people going to go?
Yeah.
They're going to get sick of 4 and 5 million people in Phoenix. They're coming here because we have one of the most beautiful spots in the world. And as that develops, all the infrastructure that services that community needs to be in place to also service them.
Well, you know, and I know one of the things, and one of the reasons Jim and I are going to go flying here, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, is, you know, I've certainly thought about, you know, I'm getting to the age where I'd like to retire, but I'd like to have a little more mobility, and particularly to go visit family in California. And, you know, that drive, and as you indicated, the cost of gas anymore is going up, not only for airplanes but for cars. That's right. You know, and the only other option is to drive down and you know, spend 2 or 3 hours at Sky Harbor and fly out of there. So you know, it's certainly attractive to think about having that freedom to go to the airport, get in your own plane and fly out to California. You know, so it does seem like there's a need, there's a desire for it, and particularly as people move in from other areas, that's got to be one of the amenities that they look for, at least some people.
And conversely, those folks in California can fly here.
Well, that's a good point.
And, you know, we're starting to develop the wine community, and this place is as a recreational base, and so that's going to be attractive.
Well, let's go ahead and take our first break and come back and join us again and learn a little bit more about a tremendous community asset, our airport.
Having a fire escape plan is very important to keep your family safe and together in the event of a fire. When you awake to the sound of a smoke detector and smoke in your room, don't stand straight up. Carefully roll off your bed and stay low under the smoke. If your door is shut, feel the door with the back of your hand. Slowly open the door if no heat is felt. Always stay low until you get to the outside of your home. Always have 2 ways out of your house and a specified meeting place somewhere outside your home. Home escape plans should be drawn up and rehearsed on a regular basis. This could be the difference between life and death if caught in a fire.
Welcome back to Inside Cottonwood. I'm your host, Doug Bartosh. I'm here with Jim Money and Al Gradijan, two of our former airport commissioner and our current airport commissioner, and we're talking about the value that our airport brings to our community, both from an economic standpoint, but certainly from a recreational standpoint as well. And I mean, I guess the question would be is, Jim, where do you see the future of the airport? I mean, what potential does it have?
I think it has a lot of potential. Unfortunately, we may see a decline in the smaller aircraft, but I think we're going to see more commercial type airplanes, corporate aircraft in here.
You know, and there's probably some people in the community that shudder and think, oh no, you know, we're going to have big jets flying in. And I mean, is that what you're talking about?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
We don't have the runway for that. For large aircraft, we don't have the space. It's just not going to happen.
I think that's one of the challenges that we do have, is trying to create enough hangar space, parking space, and we have some potential to do that, but it's going to be pretty expensive because it's going to take a lot of excavation to get it done.
To expand, yes. Yes, it will.
You know, and probably a lot of people don't realize is that we do have a airport master plan that is updated every couple of years or something like that, and the FAA has a copy of it, and that sets kind of the pathway for how our airport develops. But you know, where do you see the future of the airport, Al?
Well, you know, you talked about jet-type airplanes. We currently have about 5 turbine-powered airplanes based at the airport. And they're used for combinations of business and pleasure by the owners. In fact, one of the owners, who's a very large contributor to our sales tax base, would not be here if it wasn't for this airport. Yeah. And it's going to be pretty difficult to really expand the runway length a lot. I mean, we've got some areas we could add what we need for safety room. But we're never going to see big jets in here. That's just never going to happen. I mean, we might start seeing even the medium jets, but I doubt that. We're going to see guys that are going to own the kind of businesses and the size that would come into Cottonwood. The chairman of General Motors is not flying to Cottonwood. That's not going to happen. And those are the types of businesses we want to attract in this community. I think that our infrastructure is pretty sound right now. I don't see where we're going to need to do a lot in the near future. I think the things that were important is getting this instrument approach completed, and that would have been published if those guys in Washington didn't keep throwing this sequestering thing out in front of us. And the AWAS, as Jim pointed out, which should happen in the very near future. These are things that are going to elevate our airport as far as its perception, and I think our infrastructure base is going to be pretty sound then.
You know, and again, I assume that to a certain point, or a certain perspective, when you guys moved here, you must have been thinking that one of the reasons you moved here, I'm sure you in particular, Al, was we had an airport.
Yes. No doubt.
So,
yeah.
I mean, it is an important community asset
yes.
for us. And, you know, and it seems like the other thing is that over the last, just like anything else, the recession has really impacted particularly the private air industry as well.
Yeah,
yes.
It is. I mean, it's destroyed 50% of the national wealth, so you can extend that scenario to anything you want to take it to. But it's coming back. So, and the growth in, I say, mostly in the corporate end of aviation is pretty promising.
You know, and I think the other thing you talked about was the cost of fuel now has gone up dramatically, and I know that's something that we've talked a lot about in the commission, and how we use that as kind of a marketing tool for the airport. And I mean, do you see any relief on the horizon for avgas prices?
Hopefully. It does seem to be coming down a little bit. It's dropped 27 cents, I believe, in the last 90 days at the airport. And it certainly has a long way to go. But we have very attractive fuel prices in Cottonwood, and always have, compared to a lot of our neighbors, especially the Phoenix Valley. Mm-hmm. We're much less expensive. We're less expensive than Sedona, Prescott. But it's still a sustainable venture for the airport.
So, you know, like vehicles, are we seeing more fuel efficient airplanes coming out as well?
Not really. We're on the cusp of a transition to airplanes that are going, we've got the turbine-powered airplanes that burn jet fuel, not avgas. And we're just starting to see the start of the transition to propeller-driven airplanes with diesel engines, which will also burn jet fuel. But I don't think you're going to. The FAA is probably one of the slowest government agencies to adapt change. They just don't do it. It's tough for the manufacturers to get through the process. So I don't think there's anything going to happen that's going to be earth-shattering in that area.
So we just have to hope for better oil prices and for the cost of fuel in general to go down. I think we'd all welcome that.
Yes, indeed.
Just driving our cars to the airport, it'd be nice to have a little more economy. Let's go ahead and take our second break, and we'll come back and talk a little more airport.
Having a fire escape plan is very important to keep your family safe and together in the event of a fire. When you awake to the sound of a smoke detector and smoke in your room, don't stand straight up. Carefully roll off your bed and stay low under the smoke. If your door is shut, feel the door with the back of your hand. Slowly open the door if no heat is felt. Always stay low until you get to the outside of your home. Always have 2 ways out of your house and a specified meeting place somewhere outside your home. Home escape plans should be drawn up and rehearsed on a regular basis. This could be the difference between life and death if caught in a fire.
Welcome back to Inside Cottonwood. I'm Doug Bartosh, and I'm your host. And I'm here with Al Gradijan and Jim Money. We're talking about the airport. And one of the things I know you guys were always real interested in is making that airport as pilot-friendly as possible. And what are some of the things that the Commission has done to make that happen?
Seems like a lot of small things, Doug, but one thing that's fairly important to most pilots is to be able to use the bathroom when they arrive after a long flight. That's one of the first things you want to do, and we now have touchpads to where they're accessible. The restrooms are accessible. Our lighting is much better from energy-efficient LEDs that are now lighting the ramp. We have new runway lights, new taxiway lights. Have a very nice wind cone out there now, and we just had the beacon completely redone.
Right.
A historic beacon, by the way. So we are becoming more friendly and more and warmer to transient pilots and local pilots.
You know, and you bring up a good point too. When we started the program, you talked about we really didn't have pilot experience to a large extent advising the city the things we needed to do, and I think that is an important piece, and I think the Commission has been valuable in terms of giving that voice to the city and that advice to where we can do things like this. I know something that we ended up getting was a luggage cart. I mean, not a big expense, but something that was extremely convenient for pilots coming in from outside and who wanted to stay here a little bit. It helped them unload their gear and get it off to wherever they were staying. I think the other thing that we do provide now is we had a car up there for a while. Is there still a car that
it is available? Yes, there is a courtesy car available for transient pilots,
which is important because I know I recently talked to a friend of mine who lives in the Phoenix area and flies up here every now and then. He and his wife, and you know, they stay the night or they go to Old Town and go to the restaurants and those kind of things. And that's probably one of the areas we need to look at more is marketing that airport in terms of what's going on in our Old Town area with the tourism.
Yes.
So, yeah. I mean, because we are now a top 10 destination by Lonely Planet, and I'm sure there's a lot of travelers out there that travel in their own plane.
I'll give you an example. Friends of mine at the Sedona Airport, a couple of Texas boys who have hangars there, put on a barbecue a few weeks ago. And I'm talking about real Texas barbecue, not a piece of beef with a lot of sauce on it. And he just put a little note on a website called Beach Talk for Beechcraft Bonanza and Barron owners. 50 airplanes showed up.
Wow.
Just for a place to go fly and get Texas barbecue. And people as far away as San Francisco flew out here.
No kidding.
So it's a matter of communications too. There's a lot of things that could be done jointly with the Old Town and the wine thing to bring about a fly-in activity and bring some of those tourist bucks to Cottonwood, no doubt.
Well, and we've certainly talked about getting the, excuse me, getting the chamber involved too.
We have had many discussions with Lana Tollison, the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce, about this.
And we need to do a lot more of that, I think, really, excuse me, marketing the airport. So, so again, what's the future of the airport? Where do you guys see it going?
Well, I think that the things that the commission addressed initially were two areas of the airport. They addressed naturally the safety items of the airport, and a lot of those are being taken care of. But we also addressed the usability for the aviation community. And, you know, we made suggestions to change the interior design of the terminals so that it would function better for pilot activities and then provide for all the conveniences that go with operating airplanes in a transit environment. And every Saturday, there are always anywhere from 25 to 40, 45 guys. They show up and they just they have a common interest, and it's become a very popular event.
Now, when you say those guys show up, I mean, do they fly in or are they all local?
Some do fly in. We've got folks that fly in from the Verde Valley, different airports, some from Prescott every now and then, and a lot of locals.
You know, and I think that's important too, is getting people in the community to understand the value of the airport and what kind of you know, amenity that really provides. And it's really part of our quality of life goal for this community. How do people learn more about the airport if you know, they want to come up and just find out what's going on up there?
The Saturday morning coffee crew would be a good place to start if you'd like to come and meet some pilots and just see what's going on at the airport. Of course, the airport commissions are open to the meetings are always open to the public, and it is the community's airport.
And do you guys meet in the terminal there, or?
Yes, the increased size of the terminal lobby has really worked out very, very well.
Good.
We can get a lot of folks in there, and we have comfortable tables, and it's very accommodating.
You know, and I think another program that people need to know about that we have up there, I believe it's still up there, is the Civil Air Patrol.
We have a Civil Air Patrol cadet program, and they meet on Tuesday nights, don't they?
I think so.
I think that's what it is.
So that would be a great way for young people to come up and learn about aviation and get involved.
Absolutely. It is a tremendous organization.
So, you know, just a couple of opportunities there, and it really is worth, I think it's worth your time and effort to go up there and find out more about this airport and some of the things that are going on up there. And another opportunity we have out there, if you know, you're willing to jump out of a perfectly functioning airplane, you can also go up there and parachute.
Right.
Which is another one of the offerings at the airport, which is very popular. They get a lot of people coming up and jumping out of perfectly good airplanes, and It really is kind of neat to see when they're floating down back to Earth, and it's a nice amenity. And certainly, although they don't land at the airport, another piece of aviation we have is the hang gliders.
Yes, a lot of hang gliding activity in the Verde Valley from all over the world.
Yeah, in fact, I just read a story about a friend of mine who's a world record holder now in distance hang gliding, something like 485 miles. And so anyway, the world of aviation holds a lot of opportunity and fascination, and I think, as you gentlemen indicated, the airport in Cottonwood has a lot of potential, and I don't think we've begun to see what that potential is, particularly as this area grows. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks to our audience for joining us today. And come back and watch us again on Inside Cottonwood.